Good morning. So the last 12 months for MongoDB have been truly a spectacular year. We've acquired thousands of customers. We've grown really, really quickly. We've made some seminal product announcements. And last October, we went public, the first database company to go public in over 26 years. So by any measure, it was a pretty good year. But you know what really hits home for us? What really hits home is when we connect with our customers and our community and hear the stories about how our technology is fundamentally transforming not only their businesses, but in many cases, their own industries. And so we've realized it's conferences like this that we really get our juices flowing. It's when we speak to you and you hear from us about where we're going and you tell us all the stories about how you're using MongoDB to solve important and relevant problems for your business. So then we decided last year, you know what? Why just do a few of these conferences? Why did we do a lot more? So we ended up last year basically having over 50 conferences all around the world in places like Bangalore, in Shanghai, in Sydney, in Tel Aviv, in Mexico City, and in many, many other places. And the stories we heard were simply fabulous. People all over the world using MongoDB to solve important problems for their businesses and for their customers. So when I thought about my keynote and said, what do I really want to talk about? I said, you know what? What's more powerful than hearing from customers themselves directly about how they're using MongoDB to truly transform themselves, to either drive more innovation in their business or fundamentally try and disrupt industries that we all know. So to that end, I feel very privileged to have 4 customers joining me on this keynote. The first customer comes from a company that's over 150 years old, an industry that's not necessarily known to be using cutting-edge technology. But this customer is very different, and they're charting a new course. So without any further delay, please join me in welcoming Jeff Needham from Travelers Insurance to the stage.
Thank you, Dave. I'm really excited to be here. You know, when we talk about database design, I think we tend to think relational. And we've been using this relational standard for so long that I think there's this notion that good database design and relational are somehow one and the same. And I think that's led folks, including folks in my shop, to be hesitant to move away from relational platforms. And I think it's important that we recognize that when we talk about the MongoDB document schema, we're not abandoning good database design. In fact, we're making it better. We're building on the last 30 years of relational, and we're taking our entities and our attributes, and we're storing them now in a far more efficient format than we did before. And I really can't overstate how transformative this database has been inside of our development shop. And moreover, I think this database is transforming the overall practice of information architecture. Last year at this time, we were here with you at MongoDB World, and there were a handful of us from my shop. And we were about to deploy our first 2 collections into production. And now at this time, a year later, or just under a year later, we've got over 120 in production, and we write over 10 million documents a day into them. Thank you. And I can tell you the time it's taken us to become proficient and effective with this platform in that short year has been incredibly short. And if I can summarize 3 reasons why we're really adopting MongoDB, it's first, JSON is the new SQL. It's dramatically simplified our storage and retrieval of information in our databases, and it's now allowing our developers to do more with less time. And with the aggregation pipeline, we get to shape that information in any number of ways now, giving us tremendous flexibility over relational. And secondly, this database scales with us when we need it to. Not only do we get high availability and high consistency at the same time, but we get to do something like scale at the speed of our business decisions. We can go from 7 million documents in production on one release to 8 weeks later, I go to 700 million documents in production without issue. And finally, as we move to the cloud, we know that our database will move with us, whether it's private, public cloud, or multi-cloud, or any combination in between. And that's a really big deal to our management team. So in closing, I'm really excited to be here again. Feel free to come find me afterwards, or even better yet, come listen to Mike Brosh and I at 4:20 this afternoon talk about how transformative this database has been inside Travelers Insurance. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. So what Jeff really talked about was why they chose MongoDB. Well, we hear from customers all the time about why they choose MongoDB, and let's put into our words what we hear constantly from people like yourselves. The first thing that we hear is that MongoDB truly offers the best way to work with data. So the second thing is that MongoDB truly allows you to put data intelligently where you need it. And the third thing is that MongoDB truly lets you have the freedom to run it anywhere. So I'm going to have 3 customers come up on stage to speak to these 3 points and how they're using it to drive their business. So let's talk about the first one, the best way to work with data. Now, for those of you familiar with MongoDB, you understand this very well, but the document model is simply the most natural, the most intuitive, the most flexible, the most versatile, and the most performant way to manage your data. We also offer a very rich query language, and embedded in the database is a very powerful aggregation framework. But rather than me talking about it, let me introduce our next customer. So this customer is in an industry that's fundamentally become one of the hottest spaces in tech, and frankly, in business over the last year. Some of you may already own Bitcoin. Yes, I guess someone already does own Bitcoin. But this, the cryptocurrency and Bitcoin market is one of truly the fastest growing and frankly fastest changing markets out there. It could have the promise of fundamentally changing how we transact and handle financial transactions. So please join me in welcoming on the stage from Coinbase, Luke Demai, software engineer.
Six years ago, when Coinbase's founders had the idea to create the easiest way to buy and sell Bitcoin, they feared they might be too late to the game. The Bitcoin network had already been in existence for 3 years, and there were multiple other competitors already in the space. So they optimized for technologies that would allow them to launch fast. Today, Coinbase is the most trusted cryptocurrency brand in the US, with over $20 billion in assets stored on our platform. Those initial technology choices turned out to be extremely important because the ecosystem has evolved dramatically over those past 6 years. The reason MongoDB itself was so important is because it allowed us to rapidly adapt to those changes. For example, we used to just be a Bitcoin wallet. However, over the past several years, we've added several additional products. We've added the exchange, support for several other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum and Litecoin, as well as institutional products like asset management and an index fund. Every time we add a new product, the document model makes it so easy for us to update our existing documents because of its sheer flexibility. Something you might not know about Coinbase is that one of our greatest challenges as an organization is preventing fraud on our platform. MongoDB gives us the flexibility to rapidly integrate with vendors to give us the insight we need to prevent those risks. Just last December, at the height of cryptomania, we were able to rapidly integrate a new identity vendor in just 2 weeks. Flexibility goes hand in hand with another benefit of MongoDB, which is keeping developers happy and working on the features that matter. As a Ruby on Rails organization, The document model reduces the impedance mismatch associated with working in an object-oriented world. At Coinbase, developers don't need to think before they interact with objects in our environment. As a result, we've prided ourselves on our ability to allow developers to ship code to production in days, not weeks. Over the course of the craziness of the last year, and if you aren't aware, 2017 was very crazy for crypto, MongoDB allowed us to scale to over 20 million users. I'm not going to go into too much detail now, but we're going to be giving a talk at 1:45 right over there, where we're going to be talking about some of the cool stories, techniques, and technologies we use to get us through that crazy period. The title of the talk is MongoDB and Cryptomania, so I hope to see at least some of you there. In closing, Coinbase is super excited about the future of MongoDB at our company, as well as all the product announcements that we're about to see today. If working at Coinbase, or our mission, is something that excites you, we're expanding rapidly. I did not expect a laugh there. But we are looking for you, basically, and we're always interested in talking to talented engineers. Please contact us. We have an email address set up called mongodb@coinbase.com, so email us, or visit our careers page. We have positions, many positions open in New York, San Francisco, and London. So anyway, enjoy the rest of the conference, everyone. Have a good time.
Feeling that the career site's going to be getting a lot of hits lately. So the next point is all about intelligently putting data where you need it. Well, MongoDB has a very powerful set of distributed capabilities. Things like native replication and failover, so you can have high availability. Things like being able to shard easily, so you can scale your business as your apps and your users and your data volumes scale radically. Being able to do very clever things like run real-time analytics on production data. And also using zones as a way to position data carefully for the needs of your users anywhere around the world. But again, rather than me talking about this, let me introduce our next speaker. So nothing speaks to more to distributed data and scale than mobile computing. Obviously, it's almost a cliche to say that mobile computing has completely transformed our lives. But the challenge with mobile computing is for customers to reach out to those end users and engage with them in meaningful ways. So please join me in welcoming John Hyman, CTO of Brays, which was formerly called AppBoy, to the stage. John.
Thanks so much, Dave. This is actually my 4th MongoDB World conference, and it's always really great to be here. Now I'm excited to talk to you about how we use MongoDB at Brays. Brays is a customer lifecycle engagement platform. Our mission is to help brands use data to personalize and deliver brilliant customer experiences. And chances are, we're already in your pocket. If you've ever received a message from Lyft or Postmates about a promotion that you're eligible for, that's all orchestrated with Brays. When you get a push notification from Domino's Pizza telling you that your order's on the way, that's sent through Brays. And for those of you following along with the World Cup and playing along on DraftKings, those emails, push notifications, and in-app messages you're getting are all delivered through Brays. Each time someone downloads a mobile application that Brays is in, or visits a website that we're on for the first time, we create a database record for that user. This lets us help personalize that user's unique customer journey. And we have nearly 10 billion of these user records. And what do we trust to store this data in? Well, at Brays, MongoDB is our primary database. Since 2011, we've used MongoDB to query and aggregate our customer audiences based on their demographics and consumer behavior, and that's been key to our business. We use MongoDB for geo-targeting. And we use MongoDB to define and store our customer journeys and schemas. In fact, later today at 3:30, I'm going to be giving a talk on how we do all this in MongoDB and going over our schemas. You're going to want to come. It's going to be a really good time. Now let me talk to you a bit about the scale of our product over at Brays. Across our customer base, we help engage more than 1.4 billion monthly active users every single month. We send upwards of 1.5 billion messages every day. Emails, push notifications, in-app messages, web messages, and more. So I've been up here talking to you for about 2 minutes or so. In that time, it's likely Brays has sent something like 5 million personalized messages to end users. And we do this with a massive MongoDB installation, more than 1,000 shards and replica sets. We process over 250,000 operations per second, and we do it on dozens of database clusters in the United States and in Europe. Each time we start working with a new customer at Brays, we essentially acquire their user base into ours and much of the user activity associated therein. So this year, it's likely that we're going to get to 2 billion monthly active users and 3, 4, even 5 billion monthly active users in the years to come. So as the CTO of Brays, it's my responsibility to ensure that we can continue to scale and meet that level of demand with the same high level of performance our customers have come to expect and that Brays is known for. And the good news is I'm totally confident that we can do it because we know how to scale MongoDB. We know that it can grow as fast as we're growing. We have dozens of customers with tens of millions of monthly active users. We have a handful of customers with more than 100 million monthly active users each, all of this backed by MongoDB. Because we know that MongoDB can continue to scale with our high volume of customer growth, it lets us focus on what we do best, building innovative features and helping brands deliver personalized, real-time, great, brilliant customer experiences. Now, we're really excited about our relationship with MongoDB, and we're moving some of our workload to MongoDB Atlas in the future, which I think you're going to be hearing about that in just a moment. So I'm looking forward to meeting you folks in the audience today, and I'll see you at my data modeling session at 3:30. Thanks so much.
Thank you, John. So you heard from Luke talking about the power of the document model, and now John talked about being able to be very intelligent and be able to scale your data at wherever your users or your customers are. The next point is all about the freedom to run anywhere. Now, many of you here are probably on some journey to the cloud. Some of you are maybe just getting started, and some of you may be all the way there. You're all in. But one of the key questions that we hear from customers is, what do they do? What does the future application architecture look like? And do they really have to spend a lot of time refactoring, if not replatforming, their existing applications? Well, one of the real benefits of MongoDB is you can truly future-proof your applications. You can build on MongoDB and run it on-prem, even on a mainframe. You can run in your private cloud. You can run in the public cloud, and you can consume it as a service. So our next customer is going to talk to you about their journey to the cloud. Now, this customer is in the marketplace business. The marketplace business has been very popular since the internet got popular. You know, we had companies like eBay build massive franchises where you could connect large amounts of buyers and sellers on the platform. And even today, you have companies like Airbnb and Uber who are doing the same thing. Well, this customer is actually focused on the job market, and in particular, the hourly job market, which is especially poignant as people look for high-quality and high-paying jobs in this economy. So please join me in welcoming Jason Ford from Snag, who's the principal engineer, who will speak to you about his and his company's journey to the cloud.
Good morning, everyone. So Snag is the nation's largest platform for hourly work. So that means that we build tools to help hourly job seekers find great jobs quickly and easily, and employers to manage and maintain their existing hourly workforces. We have about 90 million job seekers across thousands of locations in the US, and we run the core of our business on top of MongoDB. But that's not really anything new. We've actually been using MongoDB in production for about 7 years now. And we brought it in-house to solve problems that I think people are still using to solve MongoDB today, right? You know, we were concerned about the performance and scalability of our relational database system, as well as the speed of developers. And it's really been a gamble that's paid off. Developers have really enjoyed working with the software. We were able to totally get rid of our ORM, get rid of our database deployment process, and move ownership of the schema to each of our product teams. It's been one of the most stable and performant parts of our infrastructure, and we've been able to grow and scale along with the database itself, taking advantage of new performance enhancements and features as the database has grown. But as our business has grown, so has the size and complexity of our MongoDB deployment. From a single replica set, now we're managing terabytes of data across multiple clusters and managing a bank of MongoS's. And we realized that we were spending a whole lot of engineering time and effort managing and maintaining this cluster, time that we would much rather spend on more strategic work. So when MongoDB Atlas was introduced, we were immediately pretty intrigued by the prospect of this, moving to a managed system. But we had a lot of concerns. I mentioned that MongoDB was already running great for us. So if we were going to go through the effort of moving all of our data somewhere else, we needed to know that it was in the hands of somebody who knew what they were doing. I don't know of anybody better than the folks who actually write the database themselves. We liked a lot of things about Atlas 2 as we started to look through. We love that it supports TLS encryption. We love that it supports VPC peering to make connecting with our existing applications at AWS really easy. Having managed a large cluster ourselves for a while, we were used to a pretty low level of access to the database itself and had a good understanding of what was going on. So we liked that Atlas has really good monitoring features, real-time streams of data, and graphs not just on top of the database, but also on the underlying infrastructure still. So you maintain a really good idea of what's going on. We also liked that we were able to right-size our cluster and have it grow along with us. So we only needed to buy exactly what we needed and wouldn't get locked into, like buying a whole bunch of stuff we didn't actually need. So at the end of the day, like all things, it came down to cost, right? I mentioned earlier that we've been running MongoDB for a long time. What I didn't mention is that we were actually running on the community edition of the software, the free version. We're paying nothing for our database, the database software itself. So when we look to migrate, we had to take a pretty hardcore look at, okay, what is our current infrastructure and networking spend to run MongoDB in AWS ourselves, and what would that cost be in Atlas? And we were pretty pleased to see that thinking about what we would get out of it and running the numbers, it quickly became a no-brainer. I mean, especially thinking about things like, hey, like backups. We don't have to worry about those at all anymore. Backing up a distributed system can be tricky, and so just offloading that somewhere else was really appealing. We really liked that minor incremental security updates just kind of come in the background. We don't have to worry about those anymore. And major upgrades, which used to be a big project for the operations team, now it's just the change of a pull-down menu in Atlas. And it's that point that gets me really excited. I mentioned up top a little bit about what Snag is all about. We're not in business to be really good at rolling out a MongoDB upgrade across a big cluster, right? We're in the business of finding people jobs. So when I think about all the stuff we don't have to do, I started thinking about the things we can do, whether it's leveraging new database features or actually spending a whole lot more time with the data itself. How can we look at user behavior on our products and serve them more and more relevant jobs? Reducing that friction or that time, when you're nervous to need a job and then you finally get one. Because at the end of the day, that's what our business is. That's our mission, to put people in the right fit positions so they can maximize their potential and live more fulfilling lives. And running on MongoDB Atlas, I hope that we at Snag can spend a whole lot more time doing just that. Thanks so much for your time. Hope you have a great MongoDB World.
Thank you, Jason. So you had a customer who frankly was very committed to open source and frankly didn't want to pay anyone anything. And they basically said, when they looked at the value proposition of Atlas, it said it's actually better for my business to move my workloads onto Atlas than trying to do it myself. In fact, we believe that if you run MongoDB in the cloud, it's both technically and financially irresponsible not to use Atlas, given the way we've designed it and the way you pay for it. So what I'd like to do next is just give you a little bit of sense of what's happening in our business. You've heard from 4 amazing customers. Frankly, we have thousands of customers who are doing amazing things, and all of those customers are underpinned by innovative developers just like you here in the audience today. And that momentum is starting to show itself in a bunch of different ways. Stack Overflow, most of you know who this is, but if you don't, it's basically a place where developers go to hang out, learn, contribute, and so forth. They run an annual survey of all the developers and basically get a sense of, hey, what are you using? What programming languages, frameworks, application servers, databases? And they ask questions of what are you using today and what would you like to use? Well, the question they asked for the last 2 years was what is the most wanted database you want to work with? And MongoDB was the #1 choice for the last 2 years. And that's reflected in the number of downloads we see in our business. We've seen over 40 million downloads of our software. Now, to put that number in perspective, it is estimated that there's only 20 to 25 million developers in the world today. Now, that gives you a sense of how popular MongoDB is. And we've had over 12 million downloads just in the past year alone. And that also manifests itself in customers. You've heard from 4 customers from very different industries with very different kind of histories, but there's many more customers. I'll give you a couple more examples. 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven is, I grew up thinking of it as a brick and mortar company. They are reinventing themselves as a mobile commerce company using MongoDB to do so. Pitney Bowes, I remember them selling postage machines. They are reinventing themselves as a digital e-commerce company. And many of these companies, as you heard also from Jason, are using Atlas. We announced Atlas 2 years ago on this stage. At that time, Atlas was running in 4 regions around the world: East and West US, parts of Northern Europe, and the eastern part of Australia. But in the past 2 years, we've expanded from 4 to 54 regions around the world. It is truly the most widely available managed cloud offering or database service in the world. Now, why do I say that? Because it runs across Amazon, Microsoft, and Azure, literally in every corner of the world. And as they continue to expand their presence, we will follow them in every part of the world, places like Middle East and Latin America and even Africa. And Atlas is growing incredibly fast. 6 quarters ago, we only had 400 customers. Now we have 4,400 customers today. But a lot of customers told us, or prospects told us, you know what, Atlas looks very exciting, but it's a little awkward to start paying for something when you really don't have a chance to use it. We said, fair point. We created a free tier. And that free tier was launched last year. We quickly had over 10,000 users. Now we almost have 130,000 users on our free tier. And in terms of our global business, our business is expanding all over the world. Last year alone, we had 65,000 people attend 115 meetup groups around the world. Today, we have customers in over 100 countries. And in terms of employees, we now have employees in over 20 countries today, and that list is expanding. And you can also check our career page if you're interested. And so we're trying to expand our reach and touch every market out there. And one of the ways we're doing so is with our partners. We have a massive partner ecosystem. Many of them have sponsored this event. But we have partners like large technology companies, many ISVs and software companies who are basically embedding MongoDB into their core business or core product. Systems integrators, some of the largest in the world, who are using MongoDB to help businesses transform themselves and use digital technologies to enable a competitive advantage. And other partners who are expanding our coverage in parts of the world that we're not in today. And in terms of customer adoption, overall, it is growing very, very quickly. Our business over the last 4 years has grown 70% year over year. This last quarter, when you look back year over year, it's grown over 80% year over year. Now, we really appreciate the fact that customers are investing in us. Nothing makes us feel better to hear that. But with that investment, we're investing back in you. How do we do that? It's through research and development. Just to give you a sense, from 2012 to 2014, our research and development budget was roughly about a little over $60 million. Not an inconsequential number for a private company. But in the last 3 years alone, we have invested over almost $250 million in R&D. And those investments have yielded products like Atlas. Those investments have yielded announcements like a multi-document ACID transactions announcement, which you'll hear more about. And those investments also yield all the good news you're going to hear in the next talk. So I started this talk by saying the last 12 months have been truly a spectacular year, and they sure have. But when I see the opportunity in front of us, when I see what customers are asking us to do, when I see the power and momentum of our community, I believe we're just getting started. So to give you a sense of where we're going, please join me in welcoming my partner, our CTO and co-founder, Elliot Horowitz, to the stage.
Don't stop.